When you're in your 40s, trying to conceive can feel like a completely different game altogether. When month after month, you're not seeing that positive test and you have doctors telling you to start IVF as soon as possible, it is just so easy to feel like time is running out. On today's episode, I am sharing Rebecca's journey, how she went through years of trying to conceive, a pregnancy loss, and then, despite the odds, became pregnant naturally at the age of 43. This is such an inspiring story and one that you definitely don't want to miss.
Welcome to your journey to fertility. This is the podcast that blends both science with spirit to give you all the tools you need as you navigate your fertility journey. I'm your host, Jennifer Edmonds, and for the last 15 years, I've been helping women on their journeys to motherhood and beyond. I believe that combining the latest scientific research along with the best energetic and mindset practices will help you to avoid putting your life on hold and bring you closer to your baby. Here each week, you'll learn ways to support your fertility and trust your body so you can stop stressing that you'll never have a baby and finally walk your path to motherhood. This is the Your Journey to Fertility podcast.
Welcome back to the podcast. Oh, I love this story today. I just adored this conversation with Rebecca. It is one that I found so inspiring for many, many reasons. And I'm just going to give you a quick intro to who she is and how this story that I recorded today with her came about. When I first met Beck, she had just had a health scare. She had been told she potentially had cervical cancer, and she had been trying to conceive already by that stage for quite some time. And she felt like she was just hitting every roadblock. But she had this inkling that she could do things naturally, that she was going to be able to trust her body in a way that everyone else was telling her wasn't really possible, especially when you're in your 40s and you start to go down that route of testing and listening to fertility doctors. The only thing they're going to tell you is that you need to start treatments and IVF as soon as possible. Beck loves yoga, and she's actually a yoga teacher herself, which I don't think she mentioned on this episode. So she wanted to find a way to connect her yoga practice to her fertility journey. And that's how we met and that's how we connected. Beck mentions in this episode that, she said something like her story, while she is so proud of herself and everything she went through, she didn't think her story was all that amazing. It's not like she went through 14 rounds of IVF and overcame every diagnosis in the world. But of course, those stories are all amazing. When such incredible miracles like that happen, we all are cheering, and that is such an amazing thing to have happen. But what I wanted you to hear from Beck is something that I don't hear from very many people, because from the moment I met her, she had this unwavering sense of knowing that she was meant to do this and she could do it on her own. And there's nothing wrong with needing fertility treatments. Of course, this is often a medical condition and we do need these treatments. But often it isn't. And it's just a matter of, as hard as this is, being patient, knowing that the timing is unfolding in the way that it's meant to, and that it's all going to come together. Becky explains some of the steps and some of the really practical things that she incorporated into her life. And at one point she mentions this time where she got her period, 1 month where her period came, and her reaction to that and how everything needed to change from that one moment. I found that a really incredibly important part of her story and something that I think we should all be able to take stock of and notice if we're on this journey. She had me in tears at the end of this episode, so I'm going to hand over to Beck. I hope that you enjoy her story. She's amazing. So here's Rebecca. I'm so excited that we are here together today to be able to talk about your journey and to share everything that you have been through to get to this point. Thank you so much for coming and chatting to me today. Can we start by learning where your journey begins and where you were in your family when we met and how things started to unfold in those earlier stages?
Sure. I think like anyone who ends up on a longer fertility journey, I never expected to be here. I got pregnant very easily with my daughter when I was 32. And it was an uneventful pregnancy. Everything was fine. It took us only, I think it was like our second try, and we got pregnant. Yeah. So we weren't really in a rush to try to have another. My daughter was very challenging. She was a terrible sleeper. And so we just were, again, not really in a rush to have our second child. And then once she got to kindergarten, it seemed a little bit more manageable, as many parents feel. They're kind of at school for the day. And so I remember thinking, okay, now is probably a good time to start to expand our family. And I remember sitting at a Valentine's dinner with my husband in February of 2020, and we discussed this new thing that we were going to try to do. And then everyone knows what happened a month later. The whole world shut down for COVID. And it just didn't seem like the right timing. I know for some people it was better because they were both at home. There was a lot of time, but my husband had to work. He only got a couple months off and he works in New York City. So it was just very scary, him having to go kind of into the worst of it. So we were not planning to have a child at this time. And then, a year and a half goes by and I turn 40. That is in 2021. And I was like, okay, so if we're going to do this, I think we should probably start trying now, not put it off any longer. And I was super optimistic. Again, I had no issues getting pregnant that first time and generally a healthy person. My cycles were normal. But an entire year went by and nothing happened, not even miscarriage, like just wasn't getting pregnant. So then I started to worry. I thought there must be something wrong with me and this is going to be hard. Nothing happened for a year. This is, not going to be what I expected. Mm-hmm. And then a month after I turned 41, I got some challenging news. I'd been dealing with cervical dysplasia for a number of years due to the stress of being a new mom and then the stress of COVID, but I never thought anything of it. I was like, oh, okay, whatever. I'm having some abnormal PAPs. Not a big deal. And I thought my body would just eventually clear it. Well, so that was in August of 2021. I found out that I was like one step away from cervical cancer. And it's just like, how could this happen to me? I know probably anybody who's in that position feels that way, but I had led a healthy lifestyle my whole life, eat right, exercise, yoga, the whole deal. So it was very shocking. And of course, they wanted to just like remove part of my cervix. I've never been the type of person who immediately jumps to that sort of thing. I always have felt like the natural approach was how I like to live my life. And also, I didn't want to mess with that area of my body when I was going to have another child. We were, actively trying. So I ended up doing a lot of research. And I found a woman, a naturopath, who was able to treat this completely naturally through supplements and also this topical treatment that actually they've also used for skin cancer. It sort of just kills off the surface cells without having to like remove anything. And I was cured. So I'd been dealing with this problem for maybe 6 years. And within 3 months of treatment, she had completely healed me. Wow. So yeah, it was amazing. Although extremely challenging because we were not allowed to try to get pregnant because of the immune system change with pregnancy. They were very scared I would end up with cancer. So we basically were not able to try for about 6 months, which, as anyone knows, that is an eternity.
It's an eternity, especially when you're in your early 40s and you just think TikTok, and every part of the world and every doctor is like, well, things don't get easier. And it's such a lot to deal with back.
It was a lot. And I definitely got even more in my head about my age, and I'm running out of time, so in retrospect, even though it seemed like a loss of time, I know that my immune system was really helped by that treatment. So I'm sure it just, you know, helped my body to be in the right place for eventually things to work out. I can see that now, but when you're going through it, it's so difficult. I also use that time to start doing research and finding out what can I do to support my fertility. What can I do? So I started taking certain supplements and changed my diet a little bit. And I started with the seed cycling, the cycle syncing, like all of these little techniques that you can add. And I just started getting connected with a whole bunch of different, fertility experts and things. And I would listen online to their programs. And that's actually how I ran into you.
Mhm.
I forget who it was, but I saw you were interviewed on about your own journey. And I just remember that in the middle of it, you just started crying. And I'm going to get emotional too. And I just said, this is so beautiful. She is so vulnerable and I need to work with this woman. So that is when I reached out to you, which I guess was that already 2 years ago?
I
I'm
think it
trying to
was. I think it was. Yeah,
which
we've
is,
had a journey together.
I know. I feel like we're just chummy. We're good friends now.
I know.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was really important. So I had a long history with yoga. And I think that was part of what drew me to you was that it was familiar. I think I'm like a lot of people, afraid of change or doing something that feels uncomfortable. So this was sort of an easy transition
Hmm.
for me because yoga was so familiar. I also really understood the power of yoga because it really changed my life as a young person. When I was in my teens and early 20s, I suffered with anorexia and depression. And I'm trying to think how old, I think it was about maybe 22. I took my first yoga class. A friend invited me to go. And that, started my journey with yoga. And at first, and it's so funny now, I thought I was exercising, you know what I mean? And I wanted to be the best in the class. I could do all the fancy poses. And over time, I changed. It was not even a conscious thing that happened. And I started to just love myself and treat myself better. And I really think that in a way, it saved my life. Maybe not even in the way that could mean, but just that it saved me from more difficulty, mental difficulty and sadness and not feeling good about myself. And it just really changed my life.
Hmm.
So I thought if it could help save my life, why couldn't it help bring a life in?
I get chills when you say that. And that's absolutely right, isn't it? You think that, yoga is often looked upon as a form of exercise, and it is in a certain way. But when you allow your body to really sink into what it can give you on a deeper level than that, it blows my mind all the time, the things that it can give you. So that's incredibly powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it's sort of like they understood, whoever these people were who invented this, they were so connected to, I don't know what you want to call it, the source, nature, and they just intuitively knew what you're supposed to do for your body and your mind. So in some ways it's oh yeah, obviously it's going to help you and it could be so powerful, but it just still blows my mind that they understood that without the science. Now we have the science that tells us oh, this is what's happening in your brain when you meditate and this is why it's so healthy and blah blah. It's they didn't need all that. They just Got it.
Absolutely true. Yeah. So we met and you were kind of at a low, not a low point, but a frustrating point, and you'd just been trying for over a year and a half. Nothing had been working. You'd had to deal with this cervical cancer scare. How were you feeling about embarking on a yoga practice for fertility?
I was feeling good. I think I was getting to the point where I was overloading myself with information and, what we say, doing all the things. I was trying like everything. I was taking like 100 supplements, again, like listening to all these experts and just doing, what a type A person would do, which is anything and everything. And it ends up being too much. So I think the yoga really helped me to do less. It was like you're still doing the right things, but it becomes less overwhelming. It also helped me do less in terms of my physical self. I love to exercise, and I'm the type of person who's like, let's run hard every single time. It's only good if it's fast and hurts. And so some days, just like taking, your online class for 20 minutes and then taking a nap afterwards, like that was my like workout. It was amazing. Scary at first, you know what I mean? Because it's not what I had known, but it ended up feeling so good and so right.
Mm.
And it was
It's fascinating to say that.
it just was like a different type of yoga than I was used to doing. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I was used to it being vigorous and challenging. And this was like just relaxation and taking care of your body.
Amazing.
So,
And so where did your journey then lead you from there?
so I also started working with a Chinese medicine fertility expert. We tweaked the diet again, and I started testing my hormones at home as well, just to kind of get a little bit more information about my cycle. My cycle had gotten much shorter than when I was younger. And also I would get like, it would be like brown at the beginning and end, which I know is usually due to progesterone being a little bit low. So that prompted me to start testing at home. And that was good to get more information. And after about, I guess, maybe 9 months of us working together, I did get pregnant and I was 42 and a half. So this was super exciting, and it felt like all the work had paid off. Finally, this nightmare is over. And then 5 days later, I miscarried, which, for anyone is just devastating. Um, but I felt like it took so long to even get there. And now I'm 42 and a half, and that was it. That was my last chance. So it took, some time. And I wanted myself to feel the feelings. I can be very good at just like not even thinking about it. Let's just put this in a corner. But I said, no, like you just have to allow yourself to grieve. So I really did for a couple of weeks, just allow myself, to feel that loss. But as I was grieving, I said, you got pregnant. It's been 10 years since you were pregnant, and your body can still do this thing. Okay, it wasn't successful, but at least you got to this point and you have a choice to make. You can get fixated on this and believe that that was it, that was your last chance, or you can double down, maybe get even more help and see the optimistic side of it, which is that your body is still functioning. So that's what I did. And I started working sort of one-on-one with someone, with the Chinese medicine expert. And so we took like the 100 supplements that I was taking and like consolidated them down. And we did tweak the diet again, just mostly to include more protein. I am mostly vegetarian, so it was a little bit tricky. So I just added in a lot more fish to the diet, and that seemed to help. And then I watched one of your interviews with a spirit baby worker. What's her name? Emily?
Is it Nancy or
I
I
don't
don't know, Maria?
know. It wasn't Maria. No, it was somebody else. Anyway, this is the first I'd ever heard of anything called a spirit baby. And if you had told me years ago that I would be interested in something like this, I would have been like, you're crazy. Because I consider myself like a scientist. But I think through the yoga practice, I have opened up to all possibilities. And you realize that there is something else going on here that can't be explained, or we don't have the explanation yet. So at this point in my life, I was very much open to this idea of a spirit baby, and I was happily, that through your program, I was introduced to this. And that's the thing. It's sort of like it wasn't just working with you; it was like the web, like the other people that I got connected to through your program that really also helped in the journey. So at the end of this interview with this spirit baby medium, she said something like, your baby will show you signs. She's like, if you just are open to seeing them, they'll be there. So the interview was over. I put my phone down and I started to walk down the hall, and on the floor was like a rainbow. It was reflecting, we have a lot of windows in our house. So it was like reflecting off something. And I saw this patch of like rainbow. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess like this is my sign. And my thing is going to be rainbows. And of course, after that, I started seeing rainbows, and not just real ones, but, these reflections all the time. And I don't live in a part of the world where we get a lot of rainbows, sometimes in the summertime, but this was, maybe a month or so after my miscarriage. And there was this kind of strange storm, and it wasn't even spring yet. And I was driving with my daughter in the car, and it just was this amazing full double rainbow. And I was on my period, and I was like, oh, okay, I don't need to be down. Like, here's another amazing sign, because there should definitely not be a rainbow this time of year. And there it is, telling me that this is all going to be okay. After my miscarriage, I also went ahead and got on progesterone supplementation, just in case that had been a factor. Because in my testing, my progesterone was on the lower side. So I just said, why not? It's not going to hurt. So I started with those suppositories. I also did some testing just to get more information about what's going on, things that they don't normally test for. Like I test my DHEA. I tested for C-reactive protein and ANA to make sure that my system, there was nothing immune going on. Also the ovarian antibody test. So I just wanted to kind of be comprehensive about, are we missing something? Why did it, of course, many people have miscarriages, and it was clearly, probably nothing. But after that, I just wanted as much information as possible so that it wouldn't happen again and we would be successful the next time. I also sort of got my daughter to start believing. She has been asking for a sibling for most of her life. And I thought it was really important that she have this hope. And I know some people listening are probably like, how could you do that to your child? Because I would say, we're not going to say if the baby comes, we're going to start saying when the baby comes, blah, blah, blah. And I understand people might be like, oh my God, what if it never happened? But for me, like that just wasn't a choice. This was going to happen. I was fully committed in believing, to the point that I would put this idea in my daughter's head that this was inevitable. So, and I think that really helped when we did end up telling her when we fell pregnant. she said, I knew this was going to happen. I didn't know when, but I knew it was going to happen. And I think just having that energy in the house was really important. And this idea of the spirit baby, it's like you're, sometimes you have to create the space, right? So we had a little issue with mold in our basement. It was like in the part where, all the utility stuff is and whatever. But I was like, well, let's clean out the whole thing. So we got rid of all this junk, got rid of the mold. We ended up painting this room that I'm sitting in, which is going to be the nursery. You can see the crim parts in the back that we have to build still. We just kind of got things more ready, I guess. I got a t-shirt for my daughter that said Big Sister on it. So it's just all these little things that you can do to prepare, even though the baby's not physically inside of you yet. It's like you're welcoming them into your life. So that was a big piece of the puzzle, I think. So I was very optimistic this was going to happen. And now it's June of 2024. And I said, you know what? I want to make sure that I'm not blocking any pathways to this baby coming in. So let's just go ahead and go to a fertility clinic. At this point, my husband hadn't even had a full semen analysis. He'd only done the at-home testing. And even the at-home testing was not amazing. So he had gone on some supplements. But I'm like, let's go ahead and get him fully tested. And for myself, let me just check. They check to make sure your tubes are open, your hormone levels, whatever. And so my tests came back pretty fine. I think my FSH was an 8. My AMH was a 0.8, which is not amazing, but normal for being in your 40s. And my follicle count was a 17, which was very motivating. And I felt like my confidence was really increasing with the more information that I was getting. It looks like, okay, nothing is wrong here. This seems definitely possible. My husband's analysis was okay, it wasn't amazing. So I got him those the Cool Beans underwear that I learned out from you. And yeah, and also an ice pack that he could use because he sits a lot at work. He tries to use his standing desk, but it's a desk job. So I was you're going to just take this little ice pack to work. Enjoy. And then, so I was feeling pretty good about myself. I feel like I did all this work. My body feels, ready. Although the clinic was recommending IVF, which that's their job. You know what I mean? This is what they're in business for. So I wasn't surprised or anything. They were oh, diminished ovarian reserve and all this stuff. And I was what does that even mean? Did you see my follicle count? I could, but I wasn't ready to jump in because I feel like the testing that they do is not completely adequate. And if we are going to invest this, not only financially, but also what it would do to my body, I just felt like I needed more information. And I'd even done all this testing on my own and still felt like I want my body and my husband's to be in optimal condition if we're going to do this so that we have the best chance of it being successful. So what we did instead was a timed intercourse cycle where they're just monitoring me, checking for the ovulation, looking at the lining, whatever, and telling us the best times for intercourse. So we did that and everything looked pretty good. I ovulated, I surged on my own. I didn't need any injections or anything. My lining was a 15. And I've been a little concerned about that because my periods had gotten so light, maybe 3 days or something. But obviously it was okay. And I feel like that was like maybe the last piece that I was questioning about myself. So I was like, nope, the lining is good. My estrogen was definitely on the low side, but it wasn't affecting the lining. So they didn't seem too concerned about that. And I guess like they're like, oh yeah, your age, it's always because of your age.
Always.
Um, that's normal. I was like, okay, but I still wasn't getting pregnant. So a few months after my husband had had his first semen analysis, I was like, I need you to do another one. And let's get also the DNA fragmentation done as well, just to kind of see, again, more about the quality of the sperm. And his analysis was worse than the first one. Yeah, his morphology was a 0. A 0. I know. And he is a super healthy guy. I mean, his diet is great. He loves to exercise. But his form of exercise is bicycling. And I had told him previously, that this could impact the sperm, but I never wanted to force him into giving it up because it's obviously great exercise. It's a big stress reliever for him. And this trying to conceive journey can really take a toll on your relationship. And I just never wanted that to happen. It hadn't so far. He was always really supportive and really wanted this too. But I said, I don't think I could ask him to do that. But after this semen analysis came back, he said, I'm going to stop biking, which was amazing. And he just found other things to do. And it turns out he really enjoyed what he switched to like jogging and doing a lot more weights and like push up kind of things. Which was probably really good for his testosterone as well. And he felt like better in his body, like stronger, like more put together. So it ended up being totally fine that he couldn't do his favorite thing to do, which is ride his bike. He also qualified for a study through our fertility clinic on ozone therapy. And so we signed him up for that. And he got several treatments of the ozone. It's like a sauna that you sit in, essentially. And he could feel the difference in his body. Like his muscle soreness from exercising would be like disappear after having the treatment. So it is definitely doing something. And they're kind of, through this study measuring the effect on the sperm. And I have to tell you, it works because in a couple of months we were pregnant.
Mm.
Yep.
Oh, what a journey back.
Sure.
And how many weeks are you now?
I am 28 weeks.
Amazing. My goodness. At the age of
43 and a half. Now I will be 44 when this little guy comes.
oh, your journey is one of those ones that it gives me chills. And, obviously we've worked together for a long time. And there are so many points where you would think that you just give up. Like this is just, it's getting too hard. And then you've got fertility clinics telling you, well, you have to start IVF straight away. But you had this unrelenting knowing that you could do this. You just had this in you. And I don't see this very often, but you just had this absolute faith that your baby was on the way, that your body could do this. You trusted your body. You trusted that your baby was ready. How did you do that? Because this is the $1 million question. So many people ask me, how do I just know? How do I trust myself that this is going to happen? Any insights that you can share?
I think it was gradual. Okay, so sort of the more information I got, about that my body was working properly. And also I did that spirit baby reading. I skipped that part, which is actually a really important part. with Dr. Maria.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yes. And I did that because of you, because I remember you saying how she predicted all of this stuff about your son, and I was like, oh, that sounds real. Like, how could she know those things? So I went ahead and did it. And that was maybe the last piece I needed to fully believe. Because she just knew things like about my grandfather that she like just couldn't have known. And she predicted we would be pregnant within 6 months. We were pregnant in 5 months. She knew it was going to be a boy. And I never pictured myself having a boy. And she's like, he's telling me that you've picked a name already. Is that right? And I was like, well, all the names that I picked out are actually girl names because I could never picture it to having a boy for some reason. She's like, oh, and I was like, well, wait, there is one that is gender neutral. Could be either. She's like, oh, yeah, that's the one.
Wow.
And ever since she said that, I started seeing that name everywhere. Everywhere. It was quite amazing.
Isn't that it gives me so many goosebumps to think that when you're open to this side of things, and you mentioned that, now, yes, we do have the science to back up why things like yoga and meditation are so powerful. But you're right. Thousands of years ago, these people in northern India, they didn't have all of that research. They just sort of knew that there was this balance between the physical and the spiritual, and combining them together is the way to free yourself from all of these things that we try and limit ourselves with, these beliefs, these thoughts, everything that we have coming in from other people. I love that you were able to trust your body in a way that I think is very difficult to do when you're struggling to conceive, and especially when you go through pregnancy loss. You think, gosh, and as you said, you had been through so much to get to that point, and you felt like that was your last chance. What is it, do you find, about a yoga practice that gives you that sense of trust within your body?
I think it's, again, sort of back to this connection to something else. And I know that you've spoken about divine timing. It's like you're able to connect to that.
That's a hard thing to do.
It really is. When you're feeling like I wanted this to happen yesterday, to finally be able to let go, which is what another piece of what happened at the end of my journey was like when we found out that it could, that part of the issue was my husband, it took the pressure off of me. It's like, no, it's not you. So I stopped being like, we have to have intercourse 6 times in a row. I think that the month that we got pregnant, we had like 3 times in the fertile window. That was it. It's like, I'd had a couple of glasses of wine, I think, that night that we conceived. Like, I just had let go of the pressure. And that, I think, allows things to come in that you're blocking by
I
being
think so as well.
stressed out.
One of the things I love that you mentioned when you were talking about your story was when you cleaned out your basement and you made space in this room that you're currently in. This idea of creating space, both physically and energetically, I think is something we miss. And it does sound a bit woo-woo, doesn't it? But there is this theory that nature abhors a vacuum. Like when there is space, nature wants to come in and fill it. So how did you feel as you were going through that process? You were making that space in your house. You had spoken to your daughter about like, let's talk about the process as if it's already here. I think this is the ultimate form of manifesting what you want. And it's the piece that people miss. It's the, I've got to be positive, and I'm going to do all my affirmations, and I'm going to think a certain way. Whereas no, you need to teach your nervous system and sort of teach your brain that this possibility of the future is actually possible, and that it's okay, and that it's on its way. So how did you feel throughout that process?
I mean, I think in the beginning, it seemed a little, I don't know, strange, or like, how could that work? And I remember listening to the woman you've had on a couple of times. Was her name Jessie?
Oh, Jessie LeVay Count. Yes, about
Yeah.
manifesting. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I must have listened to one of those like 5 times. She's just amazing. So I think like hearing her story and just her way of describing how this works made me able to try it out for myself.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and it just felt like, I don't know, like right. Like,
Yeah.
why would you not be preparing?
Hmm. That's it, isn't it? And I hear so often people say, I don't want to get my hopes up. I don't want to do all of this and then just be upset again at the end of the month. And I always say to that, you're going to be upset anyway. Why don't you do something else to support the process? What difference is it going to make? If you're not pregnant after this cycle, you're still going to be sad, but maybe you can come to that space of, knowing that you have done everything you can to invite your baby in. And like you said about trusting the divine timing of the journey as well, which is, it is literally the hardest thing in the world when you want things done yesterday. And when you are a very type A person, as you described, that is incredibly difficult. I would love to touch on that a little bit more. You said you were taking, the 8,000 supplements and you were doing everything perfectly. And then you got to that point where you reduced what you were doing. You scaled it back. It was about doing less and receiving more into your body and into your life. And even as you said, the night you fell pregnant, like you had a couple of glasses of wine, you felt more relaxed and more just ready to receive. Can you talk about that feeling of doing all the things versus doing fewer things, but receiving more of what you wanted in the process?
Yeah, I think when you're trying to do so much, you're thinking only about the process. You're like, did I take all my supplements today? Did I have enough of this food? Did I do this? Did I do that? You're just stuck in that, like a checklist, as opposed to thinking about your baby
Mm.
and the end of the journey. You're stuck in the middle of it mentally. It also is stressful. We know that the cortisol is going to be high. Your body is going to be less able to receive when you're in that kind of a mode. And I remember at one point, I got my period. My first thought was not, oh, I'm really sad that I'm not pregnant. It was, I'm really sad that I have to keep doing all the things.
Mm.
And I said, oh, this is
Oh,
not, this is not good.
I find
And
that very triggering. Yes.
I was like, okay, we need to figure this out because this isn't working.
That's that is a really powerful point that you just made there, Beck. That is, I relate to that so deeply. That feeling of I have to have sex with my husband again this next month. How do you get to a point where that becomes the worst part of your life? And that's terrible. You think I've got to do this again and it's not going to be fun and we're just going through the motions and I have to plan my entire life and being around everything to do with fertility and like every part of the joy that makes up life is just sucked out of you. That is very, very telling. And I think a lot of people are going to listen to that and go, oh, that's me. I think that's a huge turning point that I think we can use as a piece of awareness. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, just wanting to invite the joy back in. So I think I just, tried to look at what I had in my life that was so amazing. My family, and we're very fortunate with everything that we have, and just got a little bit more silly, maybe like with how I would be with my daughter, and just made things more fun.
Yeah.
I still was doing all of the right things, but the quality of it was very different.
Mm. How did you cut out the noise of the pressure that you must have been feeling in terms of how long you've been trying and because of your age, and you've got a fertility clinic saying, well, start IVF straight away. And I remember you said to me what they had told you and you asked my advice. And I think I remember saying, well, look, all your numbers are great. It looks like if you did do IVF, it would turn out quite well. But at the same time, you can get pregnant. And is that really what you feel is the best path for you? So how did you really come to that decision of saying, I don't care what you think. This is me. This is my body. This is my journey. And I'm going to do it my way.
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned earlier, for whatever reason, my whole life, I've felt like the natural approach is just who I am. So I want to say it was an easy decision. I also feel like I knew what was going to happen when I went to that clinic. I knew that they were going to recommend this. So I was prepared to advocate for myself and not be forced into something I wasn't ready to do. At the same time, I didn't want to completely block it out because I think that would have been a mistake too. And as it turned out, it was really advantageous for us to go and get this information about my husband and the treatments and everything. So it all was meant to be. But yeah, I feel like you have to stand up for yourself and not sort of get bullied into whatever they're trying to get you to do, especially if, you don't have any major issues. Obviously, it's there for people who need it. And I think it's amazing technology. And if you do have something that, needs to be assisted, fantastic. But again, like you said, like my numbers were okay. My cycles were normal. There was nothing standing out where I needed treatment. So I just kept my focus on that and the things that looked good. Also, there was some family history of people getting pregnant later in life. My grandma had my aunt when she was 39. My cousin didn't even start having kids till she was 40. She had her first at 40, her second at 42. So I just kept reminding myself of this as well. Like, look, no one in your family's had an issue either. This is possible for you.
Yeah. The last thing I want to ask you about is this beautiful intersection you spoke around combining Chinese medicine with yoga. And I think those sister sciences are just the best combination in the world. But also you mentioned just finding the pieces of the puzzle and putting them together for you, which I think is something we come to very gradually when we've been struggling on this journey for a long time. We tend to, in the Western world, go straight to the medical path, right? The Western medical path. And it's like, to do this. And it's all very scientific, and it's very much takes you away from that embodied, well, what can I do for me? Not how can I push my body into something? So how did you feel all of these little pieces came together for you, and how did you know what was right for you?
I think because through my yoga practice, I am very connected to my body. So I just know what feels right and what doesn't. And the more that you can, connect with yourself and learn about your true self, not just, what's on the surface, but what's deeper inside, the more it's just it's easy to make those decisions because you can block out the noise, as you called it. Not that you don't want to get advice. I mean, I think with the IVF, I did ask your opinion. I asked the Chinese medicine person's opinion. Even I asked Dr. Maria during our spirit baby session, and she said, no, you will not need any intervention. On that too.
Amazing.
Still get, your advice, but you have to, really be just listening to your heart and taking that time to be quiet so you can listen to yourself.
Like, you are an inspiration to me and to so many people who are going to listen to this and have an inkling of what's possible for them. I can't thank you enough for coming into my world and letting me share in your journey and in letting me show everything that's possible to the world as well through what you've been through. So thank you. I'm getting so emotional just thinking about what
All the thanks you, because it wouldn't have happened. Like I said, it was sort of like not just you, it was the people I got connected to also through you. And I'm just so grateful to be able to give back to you by doing this and give back, to this amazing community that you've made. So
Thank you. It is an absolute honor to be here with you today. Thank you for everything that you have shared. And I cannot wait to meet your beautiful boy in a few short weeks. So, the most exciting time. So thank you again for everything, Beck. You're amazing.
thank you.
Thank you for listening right to the end of Beck's episode here in her journey. I just get goosebumps listening to all of her words, and I hope that you found some of this inspiring. It's just such a wonderful way to be able to tap into that energy of what is possible for you when you hear about others who have been able to get there as well. Now, if you would like to learn more about the practices that Beck spoke about, you can join me at the end of this month. I am running a free 3-day live fertility yoga course where you can come and join me, ask me all of your questions, and start to learn how these practices can help you and what changes that they can make within your body. And you can sort of start to notice the effect that they have after you do them. We'll be going through some yoga sequences, some guided breath work and visualization exercises, and a lot of meditation. At the end of this 3-day series, you then have the opportunity to join the In Your Element Fertility Yoga program. This is something I only open up once or twice a year. I like to be able to guide everyone through at the same pace. So it's not something that's open every day. And this is honestly the most comprehensive mind-body program available for your fertility journey. We incorporate the very best of what these amazing practices have to offer. But on top of that, we combine it with all of the scientific things that you need as well. We have a fertility nurse on staff. She goes through in detail with you in a one-to-one consultation what you need in terms of testing to ask for, procedures that maybe you should have considered, or things to ask your doctor. We also have regular workshops with other fertility industry experts, everyone from naturopaths, nutritionists, spirit baby workers, the full range of support that you need on your journey. And all of this is available to you for $39 a month. That is how the program works. I know you can spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on fertility programs. I have seen them all. I just don't believe that you need to spend that much to really get the benefit of some of these services that are out there. So I would love to have you join me for both of those. All of the links are down in the show notes. If you've got questions, reach out to me before the end of the month. But otherwise, I will see you back here next week on the next episode. Until then, I am sending you all my wishes as you continue your own journey to fertility. The most common thing I hear from students who are on their fertility journey is that the stress of trying to conceive has taken over their life. Your days end up being filled with endless appointments, navigating pregnancy announcements. You're trying to eat right, take all your supplements, and it is all you think about from the moment you wake up. I designed the Element Fertility Yoga course to support your body, your mind, and your mental health in 3 important ways: to synchronize your hormones, increase circulation and blood flow, and to help regulate your nervous system. But on top of this, the greatest gift that you can give yourself throughout this journey is a sense of peace, to help you calm your mind and just make this process feel easier. Every single one of my students tell me that this is the first thing they notice after starting a yoga, meditation, and breathwork practice. But on top of this, you have the amazing benefit of actually supporting and increasing your fertility. Studies have shown that those participating in mind-body programs as they're trying to conceive have success rates 3 times greater than those who don't. The course I've designed walks you through natural conception as well as fertility treatments and IVF cycles. And the best part is you can work through it at your own pace in the comfort of your home. The practices start from just 10 minutes per day. To learn more, visit elementpilatesyoga.com or see the link in the show notes.